In this modern tech world, every gadget we introduce to our lives bring along with them two opposing forces that need to be balanced correctly. They are essentially yin and yang, push and pull. They are security and convenience. The more secure you make a gadget, the less convenient it is to use. And the more convenient you make it, the less secure it usually is as well. So when I found a smart lock that seemed to thread the needle of being very secure and yet very convenient, I was ready to jump up and down for joy and recommend it to the whole world. And so it leaves me honestly absolutely pissed that they ruined it all with a single flaw. I've been testing the Lockly for something like a month now, and honestly, up front, it is a very good lock. And I love smart locks. In fact, I think the smart lock is the absolute first smart home device you should install. Yeah, even before smart lights, even before smart speakers, you should follow up with those, but start with the smart lock, assuming you're allowed to install one in your home. And that's because not only is it fairly easy to install, usually, but it adds a lot of convenience to your life. The idea of not having to get your keys out while your hands are full of groceries to unlock your door is a lot nicer than you might first think. Once you have that convenience, you don't want to go back. But like I said, there is a problem with all tech, especially smart home tech. You need to balance convenience and security. Let's take it down to like a dumber version for a second. Imagine you've got a front door and you decide you want it to be as secure as possible. Every front door at this point has a deadbolt, and that should keep people from kicking in the door, at least in theory. If they try hard enough, they probably can. Or they could pick the lock. So how could you make it more secure? Well, you could add 3 more deadbolts, one above the other, and you could make sure each one uses a different key system. So it'd be incredibly hard to kick in and incredibly difficult to pick because you'd have to do it one by one by one by one. It would take forever, you'd get caught. Perfect. Very secure. Also very inconvenient. You'd have to break out 4 different keys to unlock your front door every time you come home. And let's be honest, you'd get sick of it after a while and just lock one. That's the push and pull of security versus convenient. If you make something too secure, you also make it so inconvenient you just won't take advantage of that security. But if you make something too convenient, you probably get rid of security in the process. The most convenient door wouldn't have a lock at all. You can just walk right in, and so could everybody else. That would be bad. That's why I've liked smart locks for so very long. The best smart locks aren't the ones that use Bluetooth, because Bluetooth isn't really reliable enough to consistently unlock the door every time you walk up close to it. Nor do they use the little key fob things that you tap to the door, because what's the difference between that and getting out your key? Now, I like PIN systems because you type in your code, it unlocks the door, you don't have to go digging or rooting for everything, and it works every time, assuming you've got decent battery charge. But as we found out, someone could see you put in your PIN. That's what happened to my son. He brought his friends over, put in his PIN. His friend saw the PIN and later said, "Hey, I know your PIN," and repeated it back correctly. And we had to change it. If you're familiar with Lockly, that's where they got their start. They decided that they would fix the PIN system. And they came up with this PIN Genie idea. And it works in a rather creative, perhaps ingenious way. You don't have a set of numbers in the classic 1 through 9 with 0 at the bottom configuration that we've seen for many years. Instead, every time the lock wakes up, it throws up a bunch of circles, and inside those circles are randomized numbers. You have to go through and look for the numbers that match up to your PIN. So if it's 1, 2, 3, 4, you might end up going top left, bottom right again, top right, bottom left this time. Or the next time, it might be a totally different set. And since each circle has multiple numbers on it, anyone who's looking over your shoulder won't know exactly which numbers were the ones for your code. It's kind of clever. It's also very inconvenient, and I've never liked it, and neither has any of my family. I've tried multiple smart locks, and you spend so long looking at the circles trying to find your numbers that you just kind of get really frustrated. This lock has additional features. There's fingerprint unlock, which is more convenient, and more secure when it works. Unfortunately, if you're like me and have dry skin, it never works. So that one's out for me. It also has HomeKit compatibility, so you could bring out your phone and unlock it. So once again, you're digging into your pocket to bring out a thing, and you might as well use a key, which it also has on here. Now, the thing that really sets this apart from every other smart lock I've ever tested is face unlock. You walk up to this lock and it scans your face, and assuming it matches up to a pre-programmed face, it just unlocks for you. It actually works really well, shockingly well. I've almost never had it fail, and to a point where I sometimes question it, because I programmed in my face and it told me it was going to be like a classic iPhone style Face ID where you have to look left and then up and then over and then forward. Didn't do any of that. Just looked at my face and had it memorized within a few seconds. And it's worked even when I've been wearing hat, sunglasses, both hat and sunglasses. I haven't programmed any alternatives into my lock. It's just always worked. And therein is a bit of a scary thing for me because, well, what happens if someone looks too much like me? How do I know if that's going to work or not? And in fact, there is some warnings in here that say a twin could unlock this thing, which kind of makes sense. But how much alike does a person need to look before they pass the test? And so far, I haven't found an instance where someone who wasn't supposed to be able to unlock the door has. And I was kind of worried about that in part because I also have a Nest doorbell. And the Nest doorbell regularly identifies my neighbor's children as my children. Their son will walk up to the door and my Nest doorbell will say, "Your son is at the front door," even though he's sitting right next to me. And I go in and I clear out all of that son's faces from the Nest to reteach him what my son looks like, but it always gets back to identifying the other child as mine. And this has never done that. That child has walked up to my lock multiple times, and it's never once tried to unlock for him. Even as my doorbell identified him as my son, the lock recognized it wasn't him. So that has given me some confidence that there is something going on here where it's not going to unlock for just anyone that looks close enough, but it's still something to think through. And Lockly has built in a host of other features in here that are excellent, and I really enjoy having a smart lock. There is built-in Wi-Fi, no extra dongle needed. So you can remotely control the lock even when you're away from home. Are you afraid you forgot to lock the door? You can double check even after you've left. Do you need to unlock the door for someone who's come over, a surprise visitor, a relative you don't want to program in forever? You can do that. And you can set up temporary keys for those relatives or the maid or anyone else you want to give temporary access, but not forever access. They'll have to figure out the PIN Genie system. You might want to warn them about that, but you can do that on the fly even when you're not home, assuming you've set up Wi-Fi and remote capability. And as I mentioned, there is Apple HomeKit in this as well. There's a limit there, but it's not Lockly's fault. In order to share the locks through HomeKit, you have to have one of their hub devices like the Apple HomePod. Otherwise, only your phone will be able to unlock this thing. Now that's an Apple limitation, and if you don't have those, then don't depend on this. Thankfully, there are other options. I'm not going to hold that against Lockly. If you've never installed a smart lock before, it's a lot like installing a lock. And realistically speaking, if you can turn a screwdriver, you can probably install one of these. You take off the old lock and deadbolt, and you put in the new, and you'll have to feed in some extra wires and carefully mount the extra pieces on here. This works off a rechargeable battery, and so far it's lasted fairly long for me. Again, we're a month in and I haven't had to recharge the battery yet. And I appreciate that it comes with 2 batteries. So you can charge one and leave it on the charger while the other's in use. As soon as it dies, swap them out. I also appreciate that beyond the spare battery, Lockly has the fallback of a traditional keyway. And we should talk about that traditional keyway for a second, because there's always the question of what happens if someone picks the lock. First, that can happen with a traditional dumb lock anyways. Second, honestly, most of these are gonna go in through the window. And third, while I'm not the lock picking lawyer, he actually has tested Lockly locks in the past and has given them the high praise of calling them pretty decent. Trust me, if you've ever watched this channel, that is extremely high praise. I watched him try to pick one of these a couple of years ago, and while he can typically get a lock picked in about 10 seconds flat, this took him like 2 or 3 minutes. And again, trust me, that is an epically long time for that particular YouTuber. And even if that isn't good enough for you, I appreciate the fact that you can actually swap out this keyway in this for your own. If there's another brand or company that makes a keyway that's more secure or to your preference, you can put that in here and still get all the benefits of a good smart lock system. I also like that this comes with a sensor add-on in the box. The sensor goes just to the right of the lock, and it's one of those door open sensors essentially. Out of the lock is one half of the sensor, and you stick that on the door itself, and the other half of the sensor goes on the door jamb. And that lets the Lockly lock know when your door is open and closed. That honestly is pretty convenient. My usual preferred lock doesn't have a sensor system like this, so it has no idea if the door is open or closed. I have it set to automatically relock after 2 minutes of being unlocked. But if the door is open or not fully shut, it doesn't know, and it goes ahead and locks the door. And if you don't notice, you end up shutting the thing, or it gets jammed up because it's not fully in there, and it's just kind of bad. The Lockly lock doesn't need any sort of timing system like that. It knows the door is open or closed, and as soon as it does close, it'll go ahead and lock it for you. But it's not all perfect. I've already mentioned that the fingerprint sensor doesn't work for me at all, and occasionally the face sensor doesn't either. I had trouble getting my son programmed into it, and it turned out it's because he was standing just a little too far to the right. We had to kind of have him stand unnaturally to the left, close to hugging the wall, to get it to scan his face properly. Ever since he did that, he hasn't had to stand that close. But you do kind of have to stand somewhat centered to the camera. The other issue I usually run into comes from me returning to the door too fast. If I, for instance, take the garbage out to the garbage can, close the door on my way out, head over, the sensor knows the door is closed, so it relocks it. And within about 10 seconds, I'm back, and it's too soon, I guess, because the lock just doesn't want to unlock from my face. And I end up having to rely on the Pin Genie system, which, again, no one in my family likes. It's security, but it's way too inconvenient. Still, that's not something that I regularly run into. The face unlock works very quickly when I want, about 97% of the time. I know it sounds like an ultra-privileged thing, but the fact that you can walk up to the door with groceries in your hand, not have to dig into your pockets, and just reach out and turn the doorknob, which you can usually do with stuff in your hands, and it just works because the lock recognized you and unlocked automatically, is a world of convenience I kind of don't want to give up if it weren't for the fact that this thing pisses me off so bad. But real quick, before we get into why, if you've watched this long, please consider hitting that subscribe button. And as far as why I am pissed off at this lock, when I installed it, I discovered 2 warranty void if open stickers on the inner portion of the smart device itself. Here in America, those stickers are illegal. What our law says is as long as you don't break the object in the process of opening it up and tinkering with it, repairing it, or whatever, the warranty will always be valid. A company cannot void your warranty just because you open up something you bought and you own. And the fact that Lockly put those stickers on there is unacceptable to me because it tells me that Lockly is probably going to fight to not honor any warranty should something go wrong with this. And that removes a lot of trust in my mind in this company. Because think about it, you're scanning your face with the lock, which means your facial data needs to be stored somewhere. Now, Lockly says it puts it on the lock and not on your device or not on the cloud. And I believe that's true because there is no cloud subscription to begin with. Bonus points there. Nonetheless, anytime I'm being asked to offer over my physical biometrics, like my fingerprint, like my face, I want the company to show and prove that it can be trusted. And warranty void stickers do just the opposite. They show that they are going to side with themselves and not take care of you when push comes to shove. So while I want to highly recommend this lock and tell everyone in the world that they should buy one because it finally threads the needle of security versus convenience, I cannot, so long as Lockly continues to keep those stickers on its devices. They can't be trusted. And that's a shame because frankly I've been looking for a good smart lock for a long time. Mine is getting long in the tooth and I haven't found a good replacement, and this was finally gonna be it. And it can't be. I'm kind of sad about it. I hope you enjoyed this review. If you have any questions or if I missed anything, feel free to leave a comment below, and until next time, bye.